I never expected to find that letter. And I certainly didn't expect to find it in the most unusual of places, wedged under a pile of old magazines on the coffee table, with no address, no name, just a crumpled envelope with the words "Read Me" scrawled in shaky handwriting. I had just come home from work, tired and eager to collapse onto the couch. The apartment was quiet, eerily so. Usually, there would be the sound of the TV playing in the background or the faint hum of music coming from the bedroom, but today, nothing. I walked into the living room, expecting Elena to be there, but the room was empty. It wasn't like her to leave the place so still. She was always buzzing with energy, coming in and out of rooms, filling the space with her presence. But today, it felt like a void. I slumped down onto the couch, my body stiff from a long day of meetings, but something about the silence nagged at me. And that's when I saw the envelope. I don't know why I picked it up. Maybe it was the odd way it was left there, as if someone had hurriedly discarded it. Maybe it was the strange compulsion I felt to read it, despite knowing I probably shouldn't. I didn't recognize the handwriting. It wasn't Elena's. I tore open the envelope, unfolding the letter carefully, almost reverently, as if I were unwrapping some fragile artifact. The letter inside was short, but it felt like a punch in the stomach as I read the first line. I went on a date last night. I felt a cold rush of air sweep over me, my heart suddenly dropping into my stomach. I couldn't even remember the last time my hands shook this badly. I read it again, almost desperately, like I was trying to make sense of it, like maybe the first time didn't fully register. I went on a date last night. I didn't want to tell you. I didn't know how to tell you. But I can't hide it anymore. I owe you that much. I went on a date with someone else. And I feel like I've been lying to you for months. The words blurred together. My head spun. It was like someone had just turned the world upside down in an instant. Elena, the woman I had been living with for over 3 years, had gone on a date with another man. The weight of it sank into me, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what to think. My mind immediately raced back to every little moment in the past few weeks that had seemed off. The way she'd been distant, less communicative. The late nights out, the sudden secretive phone calls, the lingering silences when I'd ask her what was wrong. At the time, I had dismissed it all as work stress, or maybe her just needing some space. But this letter, this confession, it was the moment everything came crashing down. There was more to the letter. My eyes traced the ink on the paper as if it could offer me some clarity, but instead, it just left me with more questions. I've been feeling disconnected. From you, from everything. I can't explain why I did it. I don't know what's wrong with me. But the date didn't feel like a mistake at first. It felt like something I needed to do, to prove to myself that I was still wanted, that I was still something more than just your wife. The words stung in a way I wasn't prepared for. She didn't regret the date. At least not at first. She didn't regret going out with another man, with someone who wasn't me. And yet, she was sitting there, writing this letter to me, confessing everything as if she expected some kind of understanding. I know I'm supposed to tell you this in person, but I couldn't bring myself to. You deserve better than this, and I don't know how to make it right. But I want you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I just needed to feel something again. I sat there, the letter in my hands, the words swirling in my mind. The woman I had trusted, the woman I had built a life with, had betrayed me. I had no idea how long this had been going on, how many nights she had spent out with him, how many conversations I had missed, how many signs I had ignored. But what really hit me, what really struck me to my core, was how she had thought that I wouldn't find out. How she believed she could keep it hidden, buried under the surface. The silence that filled our apartment suddenly felt like a prison. I folded the letter carefully, my hands trembling. I knew I needed to talk to her. I needed answers. But I wasn't sure I was ready for whatever those answers might be. And that's when I heard the sound of the door unlocking. Elena had come home. I heard the key turn in the lock, the sound of Elena's shoes tapping lightly on the floor. For a split second, I froze. The letter was still in my hand, folded carefully, but now feeling like a weight I couldn't escape. My breath was shallow, my chest tight. I knew I had to confront her. I knew the moment was coming, but I wasn't ready. She stepped inside, and when she saw me sitting there, her eyes immediately flickered to the envelope on the table. She froze. For a heartbeat, the air seemed to thicken between us. She knew. I don't know how, but in that instant, I could see the guilt written all over her face. It wasn't just the nervousness. It was something deeper, something raw, as if the weight of 1,000 unspoken words had just crashed into her. She stood there for a moment, her eyes searching mine, and then she spoke. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" Her voice was soft, almost too calm. I could hear the edge in it, the hesitation, but I didn't answer right away. Instead, I stood up slowly, taking the letter and folding it back into its envelope. "Elena," I started, my voice steady but shaking underneath. "What is this? Why did you go on a date with someone else?" Her face fell, a flicker of panic in her eyes. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She was searching for something to say, but whatever it wasn't coming. I didn't want you to find out like this," she finally said, her voice cracking. She took a step closer, but I held up my hand. The space between us suddenly felt like an ocean. "Why? Why didn't you tell me? Why did you think I wouldn't find out?" My voice started to rise, frustration creeping in, but I couldn't stop it. She glanced down at the floor, avoiding my gaze. "I don't know. I thought if I kept it to myself, it wouldn't hurt you." She paused, looking up at me, her face desperate. "But I was wrong. I should have told you sooner." The words hit harder than I thought they would. She was sorry, but not for the right reasons. She wasn't sorry for what she did, but for getting caught. And that was the worst part of all. "Sorry doesn't fix this, Elena," I muttered, my eyes burning with a mix of anger and disbelief. "You don't just go on a date with someone else and hope it doesn't hurt me. That's not how this works." I stepped back, my hands trembling. "What were you thinking? How long has this been going on?" She shifted uncomfortably, looking away, clearly struggling with something she didn't want to admit. I don't know. It was just one date. It was just a mistake." "A mistake?" I repeated, the words bitter in my mouth. "A mistake? You didn't just accidentally go on a date. You made a choice. You chose to do it. What am I supposed to do with that?" She opened her mouth again, but this time she couldn't form the words. She reached out, her hand trembling as if she was going to touch me, but then she stopped, like she realized she no longer had that right. I thought maybe, if I could feel something again, I'd stop feeling so lost, so distant, so empty. The confession hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just about the date. It was about her, about how she had been struggling in ways I hadn't even seen, ways I hadn't been there for her. She wasn't just looking for attention from another man. She was searching for something inside herself that she felt was missing. And somehow, I had missed it. "Do you love him?" I asked before I could stop myself. Elena didn't answer right away. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a shaky breath. When she opened them again, they were filled with regret. "No," she whispered. "I don't love him. But I think I needed to know I was still capable of feeling something, that I could still be wanted." The air between us felt impossibly heavy. My mind was a whirlwind of questions, of anger, of confusion. I wanted to scream, to tell her everything I was feeling, but something inside me told me to hold back. "You think that's enough?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "You think that's enough to justify what you did? To me?" She looked at me with tears welling up in her eyes, her lips trembling. "I never meant to hurt you. I never wanted this to happen." She stepped forward, closer to me now, and I could see the pain in her face, the guilt that was swallowing her whole. "I know I messed up. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to make it right." The honesty in her voice caught me off guard. It wasn't an excuse. It wasn't a justification. It was raw, vulnerable, and it made everything feel even worse. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. My mind was still reeling, trying to comprehend the full weight of what she had just confessed. And then she said the words I had been dreading the most. "I don't know what happens next. I don't know if we can get past this." It was as if a door had closed, and I couldn't see any way through it. Her words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. "I don't know if we can get past this." I stared at her, my heart pounding in my chest. For a moment, it felt like time had frozen. The woman I had shared everything with, the one I thought I knew better than anyone, was now standing in front of me, telling me that she wasn't sure if we had a future. "I need to think," I finally said, my voice quieter than I intended. Elena nodded, but I could see the pain in her eyes. "I understand," she whispered, almost as if she was accepting the reality of what we were facing. She didn't try to explain herself any further, didn't beg for forgiveness. And maybe that's what hurt the most. her quiet acceptance that things might never go back to how they were. I turned away, walking to the window, needing some distance from her, from everything. I looked out at the darkening sky, the city lights flickering below, but none of it felt real. None of it mattered. All I could think about was the letter, the truth she'd buried under layers of excuses and silence. How could she have hidden this from me for so long? How could she have lived this lie, and then just dropped it all at once, like it was something I should accept without question? I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe she could betray me like this. But I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was unraveling. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, had been hiding something from me all along. Elena stood in the doorway, watching me, but neither of us spoke. We both knew the weight of what had just been said, and there was no easy way to take it back. "You should go," I said, barely looking at her. She hesitated. "What? What are you saying?" I closed my eyes, the words tasting bitter. "I need space. I can't do this right now. I need time to figure out what I want." There was no anger in my voice, just a hollow emptiness. I wasn't angry with her, not yet, at least. I was just lost. Everything felt like a blur, like I was stuck in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. She didn't argue. She didn't try to convince me otherwise. Elena just nodded, her face drained of emotion. And then, without another word, she turned and walked out of the room. The door closed behind her with a quiet click, and the silence that followed was deafening. I collapsed onto the couch, my mind a tornado of confusion and pain. What now? What was I supposed to do with this? My phone buzzed on the table. I stared at it, knowing exactly who it was. Her name flashed on the screen, but I didn't answer. I couldn't. I wasn't ready for whatever she was going to say next. And for the first time in years, I wasn't sure if I even wanted to hear it. The night felt like it lasted a lifetime. I sat in the same spot on the couch for hours, the weight of Elena's words still pressing down on me. I kept replaying every moment of our relationship, trying to find the cracks I had missed, but it was like looking at a shattered mirror. There was no way to piece it all together. I kept thinking about the letter, the confession, the date she had gone on, without a second thought. And the worst part? It wasn't the betrayal itself that hurt the most. It was the realization that I had been living in the dark, blind to everything that had been happening right in front of me. I picked up my phone and stared at the screen for a long time. Her name was still there, waiting for me to reach out. A message had popped up from her about an hour ago. "Please, just let me explain. I didn't mean for it to go this far." But how could I even begin to understand? I didn't know if I wanted the explanation. What would she say that could fix this? That could make everything right again? I tossed my phone aside and buried my head in my hands. I had no answers, no clarity. I felt trapped in my own mind, suffocating under the weight of the uncertainty. Then, a thought hit me like a jolt. What if I didn't need her explanation? What if I already had everything I needed to decide what comes next? I stood up abruptly, pacing around the room. I wasn't sure what I was searching for. Answers, a sense of peace, or maybe just something that would make sense of it all. But the longer I stood there, the more the walls seemed to close in. Everything in this apartment, everything in my life, felt tainted. Nothing felt like it belonged to me anymore. I grabbed my coat, slamming the door behind me without thinking. The chill of the night air hit me the moment I stepped outside, but it wasn't enough to cool the heat rising in my chest. I didn't know where I was going, but the walk helped. It helped clear my head, at least a little bit. As I walked through the empty streets, I couldn't stop thinking about Elena's face when she told me. The guilt, the hesitation, her broken voice as she said she didn't know if we could get past this. What was I supposed to do? What was she expecting from me? I passed by a cafe we used to go to all the time. Elena and I had shared so many mornings there, laughing over coffee and talking about everything and nothing at all. I had a sudden urge to go inside, to see if I could recapture some of the comfort of those mornings. But as I reached for the door, I stopped myself. I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready to pretend everything was fine. Instead, I found myself walking toward the one place I knew I needed to go, her parents' house. I had never felt this uncertain, this unsure of myself before. But maybe talking to someone who knew her better than I did would help. Maybe they could offer some insight. Maybe they could give me the clarity I needed to decide if I could even stay in this relationship. As I rang the doorbell, I felt the heaviness settle on me again. What would they say? How would they react when they heard the truth? The door swung open, and her mother, Rachel, stood there, looking surprised to see me. "John, what?" "What are you doing here?" she asked, her brow furrowing in confusion. I didn't know how to explain it, didn't know how to find the right words for the mess I was in. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice shaky. "It's about Elena." Her face immediately changed. A mix of concern and curiosity washed over her, but she didn't say anything. She just stepped aside and let me in. I sat down in their living room, trying to gather myself before I spoke. But no matter how many times I rehearsed it in my head, the words never came out the way I wanted them to. Rachel sat across from me, her eyes soft but watchful. "What's going on, John?" she asked gently. You look like you've been through a storm." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "It's Elena," I said, and the words came out heavy, like they were dragging something behind them. "She's been seeing someone else. She went on a date, and she confessed it to me." Rachel's expression didn't change. She just nodded slowly, as if she had expected this, or at least something like it. "I see." I stared at her, not sure how to continue. "She says it wasn't about love, that it was just to make herself feel something again. But I don't know if I can believe her. I don't know if I can trust her anymore." Rachel's silence stretched out for a long time before she finally spoke. "John, Elena has always been complicated. She's never been the best at dealing with her feelings. And sometimes she does things to fill a void she can't explain. I'm not making excuses for her, but you need to understand, this isn't just about you. It's about her too. She's struggling." Her words hit me harder than I thought they would. I had always seen Elena as this strong, independent woman, someone who could handle anything life threw at her. But now, I was seeing her through a different lens. I couldn't help but wonder if I had failed her in some way. If I hadn't been there when she needed me the most. "Do you think I should stay?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Rachel didn't answer right away. She looked at me for a long time, weighing her words carefully. "I think you both need to figure this out on your own," she finally said. "But just know, John, that people make mistakes. Sometimes, those mistakes can be forgiven. Sometimes, they can't." Rachel's words echoed in my mind as I walked back to my apartment. People make mistakes. Sometimes, those mistakes can be forgiven. Sometimes, they can't. I didn't know which side of the line Elena was on. Was this something I could forgive? Something I could move past? Or was this betrayal too much to overcome? The more I thought about it, the more the weight of her confession crushed me. She'd gone on a date with another man. She'd sat across from him, shared a meal, and for a moment, she felt like someone else's. How could I ever look at her the same way again? But then there was that small voice in the back of my head, the one that wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was more to the story than I was seeing. Elena wasn't the kind of person who would intentionally hurt me. At least, I didn't think so. I could still see the look in her eyes when she confessed, the shame in her voice, the raw honesty in the way she admitted everything. As I unlocked the door to my apartment, I half expected her to be sitting on the couch, waiting for me to return, but the apartment was still empty. I stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do next. I sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the empty space across from me. It had been our space. I could still picture Elena sitting there, her eyes lit up as she told me about her day. Now, everything felt so hollow. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the edge of something. Something I couldn't control. My whole life had been about stability, about knowing what would come next. But with Elena, with this relationship, everything had just spiraled out of control. The phone buzzed on the table, breaking my thoughts. I glanced at it. Another message from her. "I'm sorry. I really am. I know I messed up, but I need you to know it wasn't about you. Please, let me explain." I hesitated for a moment before tapping on the screen. I don't know if I can hear it right now. I don't know if I want to. I immediately regretted sending it. The coldness in my message was evident, but I couldn't take it back now. I just needed space. Needed time. I didn't know what I was hoping for, but I couldn't face her tonight. I tossed my phone on the table and buried my head in my hands. What if I couldn't forgive her? What if I couldn't look at her the same way again? Was it possible to rebuild trust after something like this? Or had everything we'd built just crumbled in one night? I wasn't sure I could answer that yet. It felt like hours passed before the phone buzzed again. The same name. Elena. My hand hovered over it, torn. I wasn't sure if I was ready to face her words, but I knew I couldn't keep ignoring her forever. She was waiting for me to respond. With a deep breath, I unlocked the phone and opened her message. "I know you're upset, and I don't blame you. but I'm asking you to listen to me. Please. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to understand why I did it. The message was short, but it hit me hard. I didn't want to admit it, but I was desperate to understand. Desperate to make sense of something that had no clear answer. I stood up, pacing the room. My thoughts were racing again. What did I expect her to say? How could any explanation make this okay? And yet, I found myself reaching for my phone again. I pressed call. It rang twice before she picked up. Hello? Her voice sounded small, fragile, as though she was afraid I might hang up any second. Elena, I started, but the words caught in my throat. I didn't even know what I wanted to say. I don't know what to feel right now. I don't know what you expect me to feel. She was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke softly, almost pleading. I don't expect anything from you. I just want to explain. Please, let me explain. I exhaled sharply. I'm listening. There was a long pause before she spoke again, as if she were trying to gather the courage to say what she needed to say. I've been feeling empty for a while now, not just with you, but in my own life. And when I went on that date, it wasn't because I wanted to hurt you. It was because I wanted to feel alive again. I wanted to feel something other than this numbness I've been carrying around. Her words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they were too real. She wasn't lying to me, and that terrified me even more. I don't know what happened, she continued. I didn't think it would go this far. I didn't think it would hurt you this much. But I can't take it back. And I don't know if you'll ever forgive me for it. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. And what about us? What does this mean for us? Can we move past this? She hesitated, the silence between us stretching on. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know if we can. But I want to try. If you're willing to try too. The air felt thick with tension. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know if I even had it in me to try. Could I rebuild the trust we had? Could I ever look at her the same way again? I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that we could move past this, that we could somehow fix everything. But the doubt, the hurt, it was like a wall between us now. I don't know, Elena, I said quietly. I really don't know. She let out a shaky breath. I understand. I'll give you all the time you need. But just know that I'm here. And I'm sorry. For everything. And with that, she hung up. The silence that followed felt deafening. I sat there, holding my phone, not knowing what to do next. She wanted to try? But did I want to try? Did I even know what that looked like anymore? The next few days were a blur. I barely slept, barely ate. My mind was consumed by the conversation with Elena, the weight of her words echoing through every room of my apartment. I'm sorry. For everything. She hadn't begged me to forgive her, but the sincerity in her voice made it all the more difficult to ignore. I spent most of my time pacing, replaying every moment of our relationship, searching for the signs I had missed. I tried to focus on work, tried to distract myself, but everything felt hollow. Every email, every conversation felt insignificant compared to the chaos that had exploded in my personal life. Elena had left me space, like I'd asked. She hadn't contacted me again, aside from that one call. But I could feel her absence. Her ghost was everywhere. I found myself standing outside her apartment building late one evening. I didn't know why I was there, or what I was hoping to find. Maybe I just needed to see her, to see if the woman I thought I knew was still there. I sat in my car, staring at the lit windows of her building. My heart raced as I thought about what to do. Could I go up there? Could I face her and pick up the pieces of what we had left, even though it felt like they'd all been shattered? I couldn't make a decision. The truth was, I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore. Was I ready to forgive her? Was I ready to rebuild something I wasn't sure could ever be the same? Or was it better to walk away and save myself the pain of trying to piece everything back together? My phone buzzed, snapping me out of my thoughts. It was a message from Elena. I've been thinking about everything. I understand if you need more time, but I really want to talk. Let me know when you're ready. I stared at the message for a long time. When you're ready. How was I supposed to know when I was ready? How could I know if I was ever going to be ready to face what she had done? I took a deep breath and replied, I'll be there in 10 minutes. The message sent, and I didn't hesitate. I started the car and drove to her apartment. When I arrived, the building felt suffocating. The air was thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I stood outside the door for a moment, hesitating before I knocked. A moment later, Elena opened the door. Her eyes met mine, and there was a quiet sadness there. She stepped aside to let me in, but I could tell she wasn't sure what to expect. We stood there for a moment, neither of us saying anything. It was the first time I'd seen her since that night. She looked the same, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something between us had shifted irreparably. "I'm sorry for the way I've been," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want you to know that I'm here. I want to make this right." I met her gaze, searching for the words to say, but I was still caught in the whirlpool of emotions. Forgiveness, was it even possible? "I don't know what to say," I admitted, my voice tight. "I don't know how to move past this. How do we go back to the way things were?" Elena took a deep breath. "I don't think we can go back to how things were, but I'm willing to try if you are. I just need you to know that I'm not trying to make excuses. I've been selfish, and I hurt you." The words hung in the air. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that this wasn't the end of everything we had. But the doubt still lingered, like a shadow I couldn't escape. "I don't know if I can trust you again," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "And I don't know if I can live with the thought that you chose someone else over me." Elena's face faltered, and for a moment, I saw the pain in her eyes. "I never meant to hurt you, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for what I did. But I understand if you can't forgive me. I don't expect you to." The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. It felt like we were both on the edge of a cliff, waiting to see if the other would jump. The question lingered in the air, what now? And I realized, in that moment, that I didn't have an answer. I stood there in silence, watching Elena as she waited for my response, her eyes filled with uncertainty. For a moment, I wanted to just walk away, to leave all of this behind and forget it ever happened. But as I looked at her, something in me shifted. Maybe it was the vulnerability in her face, the sincerity in her voice. Maybe it was the years we had spent together, the love we had shared. I realized then that I wasn't ready to give up on us. Not yet. Not if there was still a chance to rebuild what we had. "I don't know if I can forget what happened," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "But I do know this. I'm willing to try. If you are." Her eyes widened, a mix of surprise and relief flooding over her. "You're willing to try?" she asked, almost as if she couldn't believe it. I nodded slowly. "I think we both have a lot of work to do, but I'm willing to do it if it means we have a chance to get through this." Elena stepped forward, her breath catching. She reached out for me, and this time, I didn't hesitate. I pulled her into a tight hug, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the doubt, all of it melting away in that one moment. It wasn't gone, not completely, but it felt lighter, somehow. "I love you," she whispered, her voice trembling as she held me close. "I love you too," I replied, my own voice thick with emotion. "But we're going to have to take this one step at a time." She nodded, wiping away a tear that had slipped down her cheek. "I know, and I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust." We pulled back, looking at each other. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't going to be easy. But in that moment, I realized that we still had something worth fighting for. We spent the rest of the night talking, not about the past, but about what we wanted for the future. It felt like a new beginning, a fresh start. We didn't have all the answers, and we still had a long road ahead of us. But I could see the possibility of healing. And for the first time in days, I felt a spark of hope. As I left her apartment later that evening, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together. We weren't perfect, but we had something real, and that was enough to rebuild. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something even stronger than before.